Here the Rambam is talking about priorities, which sacrifices come before what. And he was talking about katas and yola. Well, it depends on the blood or the limbs of this. Everything, basically, the rule was that which is holier takes precedence. So he says here, talk about the special sacrifices of different situations. Certain VIPs bring different sacrifices than others when it's referring to a katas. Sir avodah zara kodem the Sa'ir Nasi. If you have, this is a Korban Tzibur. It's offered on behalf of everybody. Because the Sanhedrin basically ruled mistakenly, told everybody that they could they could somehow violate a prohibition of Avodah Zarah. I honestly believe that later authorities who said, for example, that certain forms of Christianity are not Avodah Zarah anymore, they were mistaken. Okay, so that'd be a perfect example when they would get together and realize, oh man, yes, maybe we should have told all those people to give money to the rebuilding those churches. And that was a mistake. Although giving money to a church is not the type of thing, Avodah Zarah, that a person would get have to bring a chatas if he was shogeg food. So in that case, the Sanhedrin wouldn't have to bring this type of sacrifice. But either way, something involving Avodah Zarah. Okay. So because this is a sacrifice offered on behalf of the community, and we saw also, we're going to see, in Chicago's, really, even though the Torah says that we offer one par helam davar for a type of sin, or siyar avodah zarah, on behalf of the entire Eidah, because I'll say, well, there are 12 tribes, each one is its own community, so every time you have one of these incidences, it actually results in 12. It has to be done times 12, right? You assume that all Am Yisrael is tripped up. But unless you could find one tribe that actually didn't do it at all, okay, fine. Kodem l'sir nasi. This is the nasi, like we said. Sometimes it means the king, but lav dafka means the highest ranking Jew around. So, and technically, like the Rambam, according to Rambam's definition, you could have non-kings who actually qualify for this at different times in Jewish history, including today. Why? Because the nasi is an individual. Usir nasi kodem l'sirat yachid. And this particular sacrifice of the Nasi for what he did wrong comes before that of any other individual. Why? Well, I said, is one holier than the others? Well, technically speaking, yes. Maybe it's because it's Zachar and before Nekirah, but that's the way Chazal had it. Or it's because this is a more unique sacrifice, there's more rules, so it's technically holier. Okay. Usirat Yachid Kodemet L'chivsa. Let's say a person who's bringing a sin offering, he actually have 2 animals to choose from. A female goat or a female lamb, right? So he says that if it's a goat, it'll take precedence over the lamb. Let's say 2 guys show up at the temple, one bearing his lamb as a sin offering, the other one bearing his goat as a sin offering. So the one with the goat would take precedence. Why? Even though they're both sin offerings, the Sirah qualifies for all these types of sins, all the different excisions. Kareth is a punishment if a person were to have sinned severely. The 4 sins that carry a death penalty in the court of law, and a whole bunch of other sins that will only be punished with Balkus. Those are all considered excision. If a person somehow is not brought to justice in this world for violating them, he'll be punished in the next. You won't have a next world. That's what Kareth means. So for such sins, a person is unwitting in its performance, it has to bring a chatat. So this sirah covers every type of chatat. But the lamb type of chatas, female lamb, doesn't cover if a person were unwittingly performed some form of act of idolatry. Okay, yeah, so it's technically holier. And by the way, even the sin offering of a yoledet, which is just a bird, by the way. Okay, she has to bring a sin offering, a bird, and the burnt offering, a bird also. That takes precedence over the kifsah, which would be the female lamb in this case. Sometimes, by the way, the woman brings, it's lav dafka, she brings a pair of birds. She's supposed to bring one bird as a sin offering, and if she has enough money, her burnt offering is also a lamb, but a male lamb. Okay, so this chatos, I guess they say the chiddush is that the chatos that she's bringing is a bird. But what if her burnt offering happens to be an animal, a male animal? Doesn't matter. Okay, it takes precedence. Uh, this chatos takes precedence over any other female lamb that's brought as a sin offering. Very interesting. I guess I have to know these things. There's probably going to be a chart. I didn't see a chart. I'm surprised Makbili didn't make a chart of this. Maybe he did. Maybe I just didn't see it. A nice chart that basically so the Kohanim have quick reference what takes precedence over which sacrifices. Okay. Katat kodemet lasham. Sin offering takes precedence over a guilt offering. Why? Because its blood is placed on all four corners, the fingers, remember, and on the base of the altar. And for the Asham, that's not the case. Any sin offering, the purification offering in the Torah, takes precedence over any guilt offering. Except for the guilt offering of a mitzvah, because this comes up to allow him to actually begin to eat the sacrifices. That is, his asham takes precedence over the chatat. Okay? For some reason, the mitzvah, that means person mitzarat, whatever it is, speaking too much lashon hara. So, in order to finish his purification ritual, he needs to bring this asham, and then he'll be allowed back in, and he'll be able to eat sacrifices once again. So his asham takes precedence. Next, Hasham Kodem Latodah Elon Nazir. The guilt offering takes precedence over the Thanksgiving offering and the ram that the Nazir brings. The Nazir brings also three types of sacrifice. He brings chatas and an olah and a shlamim, a burnt offering, a sin offering, and a feast offering. The Bneshu Koche Kodeshim. The aisle, in this case, is considered a Koche Kodeshim. It's not the shlamim. Okay? It's going to be eaten by the Kohanim, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what happens with it. It says here, hold on. Yeah, okay. Next, Todah ve'el Nazir kodmim l'shlamim. And the Thanksgiving offering and the ram of the Nazir take precedence over any feast offering, peace offering. Why? Because they have only one day to be eaten, and they have bread that's required to be brought with them. Okay? The Torah comes with extra bread. The Rambam says feast offering brought with sacrificial bread, that's called a Todah. And then the Nazir also has to bring a certain amount of bread with him. Stam shlamim doesn't have bread. Yes, the person who brings a shlamim has to bring a meal offering, a certain amount of flour and oil, and also some wine with it, but that's not bread he's going to eat. The Thanksgiving offering itself takes precedence over the ram of the Nazir because it has four different types of bread with it. The offering, what does it say? He has to bring some actually four different types of loaves, and he's going to share it with his friends. Whereas the Nazir just brings one type of loaf in the basket. Shlamim kodim abachor. The feast offering takes precedence over the firstborn animal. Firstborn animal is holy, but it's also a mitzvah to, bring it to the temple, not just let it develop a blemish. Because these types of sacrifices, the feast offering, is applied to two corners of the altar, which is though putting on four sides of the altar. Each corner is on two sides, so two opposite corners, like you put on four sides. And also, the person bringing the sin offering has to actually lean on it and has a waving ceremony, various pieces, and it comes with libations. But the Bechor don't have that. Now, Bechor kodem l'maser be'imah. The Bechor itself, which had none of these factors, more like a Pesach, just put the blood on the altar on the base. It itself comes before the tithe of the animal. Whereas the tithe, person, at least in temple times, nowadays don't do this. Otherwise, you'll create kachim that have nothing to do with them. The person has a flock, he gathers in all the new animals from that last cutoff date, puts them in the pen, and he lets them exit one by one, and he marks each 10th animal for sacrifice. The firstborn takes precedence over this animal tithe, even though they're both sacrificial, because the firstborn is holy from the womb, and it can only be eaten by priests. Technically speaking, the Meiser Behema is sacrificial. It can be eaten by people other than priests also. Hamaser kodem la'afot, zevach. This tithe animal takes precedence over any, let's say, bird sacrifice, because it is a zevach. What does zevach mean? The type of thing that's ritually slaughtered with a knife. Whereas bird sacrifices in the temple are not slaughtered, and not with a knife certainly. How are bird sacrifices killed in the temple? Through milikah. Remember, popping with the nail, not necessarily of the thumb, as we saw a few months ago, and it's done from the back of the neck. Basically break the spinal column through the vertebrae. Shechita of animals or birds, really, it's not smart to try to slaughter against the vertebrae because that will ruin the knife. You try to find the softest part of the neck so that you cut through the windpipe and the food pipe, not even the veins necessarily. Okay, so there's no shechita there. Yishbu katshe kachin, damo nemurav. And also, the Meiser has a certain aspect of holy, the Kohanim eat it, not regular people. And its blood is put on the altar, and its entrails. And you don't do that with birds. Birds, basically, you don't get really burned so much. There's either the bird is eaten, squeeze out the blood, and the bird is eaten, or it's burned. Okay? Well, and the bird sacrifices take precedence over the meal offerings. Because at least they have some sort of blood that's put on the altar. And we saw that just a few weeks ago. And I think we're going to stop here just because extenuating circumstances are preventing it. So we'll close with the prayer. May we all live to see speedily, already tomorrow, the reinstitution of the temple, the sacrificial service, the destruction of Israel's enemies, and the uniting of all Am Yisrael together in his service. Shabbat Shalom, Misahon.